Welcome back to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Terry, and today we are doing the draft recap for the NFC West. So, just a few disclaimers, as I've said before. Basically, we're not doing grades. Grades after the draft is silly. Grades don't come until 3 years after, these players have played. But, also, didn't get a chance to dive deep this year like I have in years past, but definitely a number of prospects that I know, and so we're going to point out kind of the main picks in each of these teams' drafts. So just to let you know how that's going to go. All right, so with that being said, let's start off with the Arizona Cardinals, who had the number one pick in the draft. You can't talk about this without talking about Kyler Murray. And look, Daniel Jones was my number one quarterback based off the way I graded, but Kyler Murray has tremendous potential. I mean, the hype is real. And we're not even talking about the numbers, the highlights, all that stuff really doesn't matter. I think you're talking about his ability to move in short area spaces and short area quickness. It's a baseball type of quick twitch muscle where you're seeing it with, Russell Wilson. That's not just a lazy comparison. It's a very apt comparison as far as his ability to maneuver in confined space, not in the open field so much, but we're talking about in, crunch time in the pocket. And so a lot of people talk about his ability to throw in the pocket needs to improve. I'm not so sure. I honestly believe that he extends plays naturally, not catch the ball and run out to the side and try to throw the pass. I think he knows when to extend the plays and he'll get better at it. And so it's not that he's not good in the pocket because he doesn't throw from the pocket. I think he maneuvers the pocket extremely well. He's very quick. He can go in and out. And he knows he has the athleticism to throw the ball from where he wants to throw. And he can get better, but I don't think it's as bad as people talk about. I think he has at least a level 4 out of 5 arm, and his accuracy is pretty decent. So look, I think he's got it all. People talk about baseball versus football. I think he's locked in as the number one pick, and I think it's a great choice. If they didn't have Josh Rosen from a previous thing and then they got a coach that was fired, that's a whole different story. All that's kind of ugly, but as far as the player, no problems with the player. All right. Byron Murphy was talked about as a first round pick as the number one corner in a not so great corner class. I think he doesn't have the same length as some of these other corners, but he's basically a first round pick as number 33. And I think he's going to compete. Pat Pete is, that all kind of rhyme, but Pat Pete is on his way, down unfortunately, not down, but he's getting older one way or the other, and the secondary's kind of changed. So you want to get a guy that's feisty in there to compete, especially with this new regime. Andy Isabella, some people thought he might be a first round pick. Look, to me, second round's kind of high, but a lot of people, these are products of, Kingsbury's so-called offense. And I've talked a lot about this idea of new, young, athletic, spread it out offensive coaches. I don't buy into it. I think it's all stupid, but that's the value they place on slots. So that's who they got. I think he's very athletic. He's a tough competitor coming out of Mass. And so, no real issues there. I think second round's a little rich, but hey, that's what they went with. Zachary Allen is a big boy, and I'm not sure who they got to be their defensive coordinator, but I think and what you traditionally think of in the 3-4 with Chandler Jones and them, I think Zachary Allen fits perfect as a 4 technique. I hate that. It's not a 5 technique. It's a 4 technique. In a 3-4 defense, I'm not sure what type of front they're going to be running, but I think he has a high motor and he's a big boy that can move bodies. Hakeem Butler at Iowa State had a lot of height, but ended up going in the 4th round, which I think is about normal. He doesn't have the speed or the route running ability of other receivers, but can be a 50-50 guy. Deontay Thompson, now I thought he was going to be a lot higher than a 5th round pick, and he's a mix of good at all the areas, but not great at anything. I mean, he's slender built, but he's not scared to hit. I mean, but he's also not super athletic, but he also can cover decent ground. He'll be an interesting pick. I mean, I don't see nothing wrong with going with a Bama D-back. And then Lamont Gallard, at a 6th round from Georgia, who I thought might be a little bit higher of a center, but I think is a very capable starting center. And then you round it off with Caleb Wilson in the 7th round, who is an injury concern, but I think is a nice flyer in the 7th round. I mean, I would have took a flyer on him in the 5th round because when healthy, I think he's a good move tight end. So overall, you get a lot of picks. You get a number of guys that you expect to contribute right away. Couple guys that might be a little bit more of projects, but I'm not too mad at this draft at all, especially with a new regime and trying to take it in a new direction. So next we go to the LA Rams. You start off with Taylor Rapp. So no 1st round pick, 2nd round you get Taylor Rapp. Look, Taylor Rapp coming out his freshman year looked like a top 10 pick. I would have liked for him to stay a little bigger, but he thinned out a little bit. So now people aren't sure if it's free safety or strong safety. Some people think free safety is more lucrative. So I think he tried to thin out and go towards that way to show people he can have range. And I think he has range, but I think his best bet was to be more of a Cam Chancellor type, safety. But he ends up going in the 2nd round towards the end. And it was shocking to me because he has a history of not being scared in the box, ability to play the ball, decent range. I wouldn't say he has great free safety range. So I would like to see the Rams put more weight on him and let him play strong safety. But at the same time, the Rams for the last few years have played with safeties that aren't as bulky as most safeties. So, kind of having him in that, system where he can do multiple things should be a big pickup for Taylor or for the Rams. I think Taylor Rapp is one of my more favorite players to come out in the last few years. I wish he would have kind of stayed the course he was on his freshman year, but I think that's a big pickup, that late in the 2nd round. Then you get Darnell Henderson out of Memphis, pretty good back. I mean, he's got size, but he also runs hard and has shown some, ability to break away. I don't think he is like any type of home run hitter. And then of course you got Todd Gurley, who's the bell cow. So 3rd round for a running back, kind of interesting move. We've seen a lot of teams go with running back early. I don't know if I would have took him in the 3rd round, but I do like the player, so not mad at that. David Long, really quick, corner out of Michigan. 3rd round's higher than I thought he might go, but I do think he's a nice project. That's somebody you could develop. I think he has all the physical traits that you look for, and it's just a matter of, really locking him into your coverage system. Bobby Evans in the 3rd round. Would not took Bobby Evans there. Bobby Evans, I know he was lauded early on about, as a left tackle that can do these things. I didn't see it. I didn't like his tape at all. Out of all the Oklahoma, and I think all 5 of them, if I'm not mistaken, were in this draft. I didn't like him. I mean, he was the one I liked his tape the least. So I do think there's some power issues there. There's some leverage issues, technique issues, but with the Rams, they've done a good job, and that kind of links up with the 5th round pick, David Edwards. They've done a good job with some players that people weren't expecting to be as good, and then they brought in a veteran at the left tackle, and he kind of solidified it. But you think about the Rob Havensteins from Wisconsin, David Edwards, who was another kind of power blocking pig. And then Bobby Evans doesn't fit that mold. So I'll be interested to see what they do with him, but I'm pretty sure he might end up be moving to guard because I just don't know if he holds up at left tackle. Then going down, Nicholas Scott out of Penn State. I saw a little bit of him. Not too mad at that pick. And then Dakota Allen out of Texas Tech. So, I mean, really, again, a playoff team that doesn't need a whole lot of starting pieces. But I think out of this draft, you're looking at Taylor Rapp and just wondering what exactly he could bring to the table. Cause for me, that's kind of the one I got my eyes on. All right. So going to the San Francisco 49ers. It is weird. I just realized that the NFC West had the number 1 and 2 pick. But anyway, so first round we get Nick Bosa. And Nick Bosa is the brother Joey Bosa, of course, from the Chargers. Look, I got no problems with Nick. Nick is, I don't have no problems physically with Nick. You talk about, physical traits. You talk about, technique and ability. All there. The person, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think it's egregious. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the social media and his political stances, that are, questioning some people. But then there's also the idea of him leaving the team just to prepare for the draft. Look, I have a problem when players don't play the bowl game to get ready for the draft, let alone just leave after injury. And that says a lot. That's all I'll say. And it isn't what I thought the Bosa family stood for. I was hoping this would be a nice legacy. So I don't know. I got questions about Nick Bosa, the person, but as a player, I think he's perfectly, worthy of a number 2 pick. The issue comes in with the fact that the 49ers have got Eric Armstead. You got DeForest Buckner. You got, Solomon Thomas. When does it stop? I mean, there's one thing to have the Andy Reid mentality we build through the trenches, but that many defensive line picks and you don't have one of the scariest defensive lines in the NFL. I mean, I wasn't a big fan of Solomon Thomas. I'm not using this as a chance to toot my horn, but the fact is you take in the number 2 pick another defensive lineman, and I just wonder what the direction of this team is. So then second round pick, you get Deebo Samuel. Kind of rich for me. This receiver class wasn't great. The fact that DK Metcalf fell so far, I mean, because really none of these receivers, none of them. I would not put my faith in not one of these receivers where it's like, it's a stamp, this person's going to be good. I do think there are certain receivers where it's like, they got great potential. Let's mold them in the right way. And I understand that the offense they run is a lot more speed cuts, a lot more fast cuts. But look, DK Metcalf ran for like around 4.3, and he's big as hell. I would have took a chance with him. Deebo is more of a yak receiver, which is fine. But look, you got Jimmy Garoppolo, good accuracy. And even if you like Deebo, I just don't know. The second round is where I would have took him. Or if I would have traded back, I don't know. But that's kind of hindsight stuff. I just think that's a little rich for me. But you know what? Deebo might prove to be much like DJ Moore, who was much a yak receiver, not great routes, and didn't have a chance to shine in college and end up looking a lot better than people thought in the NFL. So maybe that's Deebo, but I just don't see it. Not if I'm in the second round and the other receivers on the board, I don't know if I would have went Deebo. Then third round, you back it up with another receiver who is one of the more interesting characters than Jalen Hurd, the former big time running back out of Tennessee, who was the starter over Alvin Kamara, then quit Tennessee, went to Baylor to change to receiver. I'll just be interested to kind of see what he does because he is a story. Then you get a punter in the fourth round. That's always a gamble. Sixth round, you get Caden Smith out of Stanford, who I really liked. I mean, we know what George Kittle does, and you gotta have more guys that can block. Kittle can block, but he's not TJ Hawkinson. He's not any of these other guys. And so you want to get guys that can do a little more blocking, and Stanford does a lot of blocking. So not mad at that pick at all. So overall, I mean, I think your draft is going to be second and third round pick. Of course, everybody's going to have eyes on Bosa. But I think Bosa's naturally gifted enough that he'll do his thing. But the second and third round receivers, that's where I got my eye at, because I'm not so sure that's where the 49ers needed to go. But, sometimes it's not about need. Sometimes people have an inclination about certain players and they go that route. So we'll see what they do. All right. Seattle Seahawks. Excuse me. Speaking of DK Metcalf. So a lot of movement going on here. So the 49ers, the Seahawks ended up with 2 first-round picks, ended up trading one for some more picks, all this stuff. So, basically, first-round pick, they got Lawrence Collier out of TCU. I have very bad feelings about that. Not that I don't think he'll be good, but as a first-round pick for a guy that was not in the conversation all draft season, I mean, his teammate Ben, I can't even pronounce his name, but he was the one that everybody's looking at, and then the tape, and it's like, oh, look at this Collier kid. And I get it. He's got some potential. Ben has some potential, but neither one were like locks. And so first round, either I'm shooting on very high potential or I'm shooting on locks. And I don't think Collier fits in either one of these circles. Now, a lot of people say they got to rebuild that defense. They got to rebuild, the teeth that kind of gave them their championships. And I get that. But look, there's other players to get. There's other routes to go. I think most people would tell you that LJ Collier was a surprise in the first round. Then the second round, you get Marquise Blair, safety out of Utah. Not mad at that pick at all. Definitely gonna need safety help now that Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, the long time duo, are gone. So be interesting to see what they do there. Then you get DK Metcalf at the end of the second round. Shocking that he was still there. I'm actually kind of shocked they took him. He's very different than what Russell's used to. And look, they won a Super Bowl and they went to another Super Bowl. So some people might say it's been a while. They need to switch up the formula. The short route running receivers don't work. Maybe they need bigger targets. But look, I think you prove that you can win with that. I would stick with it. You get a guy like Russ that is mobile and a guy that can extend plays. You need receivers that can make quick cuts and get quick escapes and separation. And big guys like DK don't always amount to that. DK is more of a very, very, very physical vertical threat. And so I don't know that 50-50 balls would be the way to win, but we'll see what Russ can do with that, as they take a chance with him. Gary Jennings out of West Virginia, another interesting pick. A lot of these are interesting picks, none that I would say we all saw coming. I mean, Travis Homer, and it seems like they always get a running back in Seattle. I think he's a very, very tough-nosed, determined workhorse type runner, so I like him. DeMarcus Christmas, guarantee he's going to start within the next 2 years. And they always kind of get defensive tackles too, but I think Christmas is a very, very effective nose tackle. So, I mean, looking at this draft, all eyes on LJ. I mean, eyes are on DK, but look, DK, here's the difference with the draft. This is not a Seattle thing, but the difference with the draft is if DK goes number 15 to the Redskins or whatever, it's a whole different story. But then DK goes the end of the second round to the Seattle. He doesn't have the same story about him, even though he's a freak of nature. He doesn't have the same story and pressure about him. He's not the first round pick. He's the third one picked on this team. And that's to no fault of his own. So people blame or talk about players like it was their choice to be the number one pick. And it's not. Like, you go where teams draft you. And so as a result, DK is not going to have the spotlight like LJ Collier is going to have. LJ Collier is going to be the story of this draft. And to an extent, the first 3 picks, but I just think, LJ Collier is really going to be the one people are like, why did you take him over other people? So it'll be interesting to see. All right. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the NFC West 2019 NFL draft. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about your team's picks. Any player you particularly excited or worried about. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.